Hello and welcome back to Caught in the Web. This is episode 6. Today's episode, it's just going to be me and Chris because the others have bailed on our Christmas time episode. The only reason they've bailed is, I believe, because one of them couldn't get enough sleep and the other one was feeling pretty ill. So, hey, get well soon to Taylor and Dalek. I'm not sure where Coot is, but we will soldier on. I said that wrong. We will soldier on. Let's get right into it. Hey Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing good, yourself?
I'm not bad. It's Christmas time. I know we were discussing before the show started that, you know, some of us are luckier to have time off than others, such as yourself, who has to go through the Christmas period working, but yeah.
Sadly, in pub management, the Christmas time just means harder working time.
Yeah, you're doing God's work, though, keeping the patrons happy and, you know, festive over the Christmas period, but
yes,
hopefully you get some time off soon. All right, so I guess do you want to cover one of your stories first, or should we do one that I added?
I'll just pick it random, mate. Pick it random.
All right, let's go with robot artisans are creating Hollywood's most elaborate props. Basically, there's a small firm out of England actually that are making like plastic movie props. They're getting them done in like a matter of hours in comparison to, you know, how long it would take if you handcrafted them, and they're kind of suggesting this is going to be the way it's going to be going forward, like making it via a robot arm, which in this story is what's being used. You know, it's kind of a sign of the times, I guess.
Yeah, you've even got our Christmas theme from this article, because as you look, the name of the town is Tinseltown.
That's right, Tinseltown, out of Gloucestershire by the look of it. No, Tinseltown is obviously a colloquial word for Hollywood. So interesting to see the Hollywood movie companies are trying to adopt robotics to take it out the labour side of things, I guess, and the human element. So they're trying to put it all into technology. I mean, I can see why they're doing this. I bet it's a lot cheaper. Maybe over the long run, at least.
Yeah, you know, you hear stories about how, like, Lord of the Rings, for example, that was like tens and tens of thousands of hours.
Yeah.
They did making all the props and all the armour and all that.
Yeah.
So obviously anything that can cut out the man hours. As you said, it saves the production company money. You know, that's basically it. You know, these are robot arms. They just keep working all the time. You know, they use sort of things that look like this for cars now. You know, just to make the physical props for it.
Yeah, and having them to be able to go, okay, I need a model, I don't know, penguin in 2 weeks, and we need it plastic delivered here. You know, combine this with 3D printing, you basically don't even need a props studio anymore, do you?
No. This is one of the things that like 3D printing promised us, wasn't it? You know, we expected this sort of stuff when the 3D printing came out. This is sort of 3D printing coming good, because 3D printing was the sort of hit fame about 3-4 years ago, and there hasn't really been anything that cool about 3D printing since then. You know, you get like the odd story about 3D printing every 6 months or so, and this is like another one of them. But yeah, it's just a way to make films cooler. We all like films.
But what about the human element, though, when all these people are probably going to be losing their jobs?
Yeah, it is a further bit of evidence for the slow march we all do to unemployment. You know, the jobs, robots are taking over. This is obviously one of the more niche markets they're taking over first. But you know, it's like how as soon as self-driving cars come out, you're probably going to see a massive uproar in the logistics industry.
Yeah, potentially. I think sort of this got the headlines because of the whole, there's a robot arm designing the props and almost like indicating that we've got to a point now where robots are able to be more intricate and detailed, or at the very least on par with humans. So do you think that's true?
Yes, it's one of the things like you see robots like doing surgery and stuff, aren't they now? Because obviously robots can do things that are a lot more intricate and fiddly than what people can. They've obviously got like and this sort of stuff like the prop making is perfect for robots because obviously if you have to make loads of the same thing repetitively, obviously a robot's going to be, because as soon as the robot's programmed to do it once, it's programmed to do it a million times. Like it makes no difference to a robot, does it? And you do get things like obviously where if you're making a film and you've got to make like a long sort of like statues for like a castle, you might have to make like 1,000 of the same statue. And this is just a way to easily do it instead of just CGIing 1,000 on.
Yeah, and I suppose robots don't get tired, so that's almost a bonus as well.
No, yeah, you can have one of these machines basically working 24/7.
Mm-hmm. Can you think of an example of where this might not work?
Oh, what robots taking over jobs?
No, as in let's bring it back to this example. So like art and design for Hollywood and the movie industry, where it maybe wouldn't be so good, and you'd need that human touch to be able to add that finishing touch onto the prop to make it come to life, instead of having a robot be able to do it. I can't personally think of one except maybe, I don't know, like maybe sometimes it would be quicker to have a human do something rather than put it through a machine. So like I can think of, let's say, I don't know, let's say you're doing like you're designing a human face, and you just need to finish the eyeball to make it look lifelike. The time it would take to sort the robot to do that after like a second draft may be slower than having the human come in who's got that art background and be able to say, okay, let me just add the shading here or the shadow here. I don't know any of the artistic terms, but that sort of thinking is what was going on.
Yeah, I imagine this sort of thing is only really used when, like, if something has to be sort of mass produced. I imagine if it's like we're making this one-off expensive thing, it's probably always going to be done by like a person, because obviously the benefit to a robot is, as I said, you can program it, and once it's been programmed, it's basically no limit to the amount of times it can be done.
Yeah.
Whereas there's obviously no point to program something for you to just do it once.
But I suppose initially you have to have that person programming it, so maybe it will work alongside these artists, so they can make the master copy, and then the robot would actually see that and then copy it. Maybe that's the avenue it's going to go down to make it less of
probably be like that, yeah.
So you'd have like... Go on.
Because you get like accidents, don't you, happen, so you would need to have like a master copy anyway, then like a way to be able to make physical other copies.
Like the artist might be the guardians, for lack of a better term, of these robots, and I don't know, kind of being quality control, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
It's pretty...
As you said, though, this is obviously this isn't good news for people who make props for the movie industry,
because they'll just see this picture and go, "Oh, okay, that's how it is."
Yeah.
For those of you that can't see the picture, there's almost like a car factory style robot arm that's got seems to be a drill piece on the end around a sculpture, and it's indicating that this robot will be used to make sculptures of its kind that were previously made with a hammer and chisel. So sort of out with the old technology and in with the new.
Yeah, it's making sort of like a polystyrene priest
of sorts, yeah.
Yeah, looks pretty cool. It's just as I said, it's the slow march to the future that we can all expect to be a part of. Where the robots are slowly taking over.
I sort of like to be a bit optimistic though when it comes to robots and AI, as you've probably heard in the previous ones, of the whole, sensors and Internet of Things. I know that Taylor's view is more they're trying to sell it and make money from us, and the government's going to look at everything we do, but I sort of see this as inevitable, really. The tech gets so good where it can see a 3D model and replicate it. Why would you still want humans doing it, It's almost you have to adapt with the times. You can't just be, I'm a I'm a designer, I'm a sculptor, and I know that might be sounding very ignorant of the, I don't know what the word is, art and design industries out there that are involved in this, but to me it seems like, hey, you've got to catch up, otherwise you're going to get left behind.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's not a negative thing that the robots are taking over. It's just the way the natural order is. If you're in a business and you can get a robot that does things, they as you said earlier, like they can work for 24/7. People can't do that. The robots are going to be cheaper on the most part. As the minimum wage goes up, the ability to have robots becomes more and more necessary. It's just something we see all the time now, really, because you go to the shops now, you got the self-help machines. You go to McDonald's now, you can barely order from the counter at McDonald's. Most of the counters have been replaced with the big sort of screens that you tap to place your order. This is just how the world's moving on to a more technology world.
But there's always someone there to double check the receipt machine or that you haven't put too many things in the bagging area. There's always that human
There
element.
always will be, yeah. There always will be someone there to check this, because obviously computers do go wrong. It's just they go wrong a lot less than people do.
You think that human side will always be there?
I think for at least the near future, I think there'll always be people there. Definitely sort of the age we live at, because, technology does progress slowly, even though it progresses fast at the same time. It's like you look at some people now at the age of like 50, 60, there's still like a high lot of them who don't use a self-help machine, because they don't want to, because it's just weird for them to use a self-help machine. They've always used they've always gone to a person till, they've always been served by a person. It's a strange sort of show of the times for them to be using a self-help machine. But obviously, as we go into the future, people get more and more used to it. And then slowly, the human elements of, definitely with the service industry, will slowly be pulled back.
Yeah.
It's obviously slightly different to the service industry, because, making elaborate movie props, it's obviously a very sort of a specific skill to have. It's not quite like, I guess it is the equivalent to a car manufacturer, and how the robots were used to make cars. That was obviously a very I'm struggling to talk now. It's a very sort of specific job this is what robots are good for, aren't they? They're good for doing a specific task many times.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing that will come first. Obviously, this is why so much money is being put into AI technology, because as soon as you get a half decent AI, then a machine will basically be able to do any job, because it will just be able to think for itself. But currently, machines are really stupid, so it's got to be programmed in a specific way, and it can do the one job, but it can just keep doing it. You don't have to worry about it. As you say, like, look at the self-service checkouts for like fast food restaurants and shops and all that. Like, that's taken people's jobs away. It has. You go to like a supermarket and go to the self-checkouts. You'll get about 10 self-checkouts machine being administered by one person, whereas 10 years ago you'd have to have 10 checkout tills, each with a person.
Yeah. I just, it's interesting what you said about, obviously robots are designed to do a repetitive task accurately, constantly, with very little or no failure. Whereas in this example that we're looking at, this is almost suggesting like these are movie props that might not all be the same, but they can get to a point where they look at the request and do it instead of the same thing over and over again. So it's pretty amazing, to be honest. I mean, just look at of people that are listening to this can't see it, but there's actually pretty incredible amounts of detail in this sculpture that's on the screen, and it's just done by a drill piece. I know it's probably just an example, but still, the possibilities are there for sure.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing, as I said, it's only going to improve in the future. And as we know from how most technology does work, it improves faster than you think. And then we're sort of left with this feeling like it's always been this way. You know, it was only like 14 years ago when smartphones didn't exist. Now we all just take smartphones for granted. You know, so that's how much of a technology gap you get in sort of 14 years. You know, that's the sort of technology gap you got to look at. So in 14 years' time, this is probably going to be like how everything's going to be made. You know, you're going to have like a 3D printer at home, and instead of going to IKEA to pick up like a shelf, you're just going to go to the shop, pick up some products for like your ink, basically, for your printer. Then you're going to go home and log onto the IKEA website and buy the product, and it's going to print out for you.
Yeah. Where does this stop, though? Where do we get? Like, let's say 10 years' time. Where are we with these robots that are on the factory floor designing and building these things? Where are we, do you think?
No, yeah,
It's a hard one to call, isn't it? You can't really. That's a bit of an unfair question to say where are we in 10 years. But I mean, like prediction wise, do you think there's going to be, you know, is the accuracy going to increase, or are they just going to get better at doing this? Is it going to be able to work with more materials? What sort of things do you envision from these?
I envision it improving in pretty much every way. It's a hard thing to tell though, because if you said to me in like 2015, 2014, when we had all this news about self-driving cars, if you said to me, "Oh, how do you think self-driving cars are going to be in 2020?" I would have probably said, you know, we'd have seen our first self-driving car on the road by now, and that would be like a thing that people would be purchasing. But obviously, we're getting very close to 2020 now, and self-driving car looks still years and years ahead. It's one of the things where it's hard to predict because technology always looks like it's very close to being done, but at the same time still being a few years away.
Yeah, and becoming a gimmick, right, Chris?
Yeah, in a sense.
Yeah,
it's
I know what you mean.
It's like how you get these news articles about the crazy technology. It's basically sci-fi technology.
Yeah.
And all news articles always say, like scientists say it's 7 years away. Then you see the news article 7 years time, and it'd be like, "Oh, scientists say it's 7 years away." You know, you get these articles. It's always the same sort of time thing, like.
Or there's going to be that that headline that comes out that's almost that look at this technology piece like this. Let's say this, for example, they come out with something like this to make everyone start to go, wow, this technology is actually a thing, and we can use things like this almost to generate the hype, and then often the hype actually ends up being multiple years away, as you said. Well, like with the self-driving cars, we've all seen those, like the Google concepts where you've got the little pods, you get in, you read your paper, and then you're at your office. We've all seen them, but you know, the reality, as you said, is self-driving cars are crashing into things when they shouldn't be. They're being human tested and still going wrong. So it's almost like a painful process because it's so close yet so far away.
Yeah, it's like one of them things where, you know, technology is hard to understand because you can get like 99% of the product done in like a year, but that last 1% needed to get it safely on the market could take you just 6 years. Yeah. It could just be such a hard problem to work out. You know, because like you look at self-driving cars now and you see the tests, like they've literally done hundreds of thousands of miles on the road, but it's just the little things that just make it not safe, like the Tesla car that crashed and had like the first death that happened purely because a lorry moved in the way of the Tesla, and the Tesla didn't notice it because there was light shining at a certain place. You know, it's these sort of little things that become like bugs that they have to obviously scrape out before it comes to market. It's an interesting thing to see products like this, you know, where we can get rid of a bit of human labour, because, you know, we all grew up watching Star Trek and had the promise of not having to work when we got older, and that's the dream, I think. Obviously, it's not a dream that we're going to have for many years because, you know, working in the service industry and you working in IT, we're pretty much going to be the last jobs to be phased out, I imagine.
Yeah, it's kind of a depressing outlook, but at the same time, you got to stay optimistic, right? You got to have, as I always say, the robots that take over the world and kill all the humans still need engineers to oil them.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I have no segue, so I'm going to move on to the next topic. Do you have any final sort of things you want to say about this one, or happy to move on?
Yeah, I'm just happy to move on.
All right, let's go over to this one. This might be pretty interesting. Headline reads, if I can click on the right tab. In a rare move, Apple, Amazon, and Google just announced a major partnership. In a sense, they're coming together, all these big companies, Apple, Amazon, and Google, to make a standard for smart homes. So this is the way they conduct business, the way they secure data, etc., etc., and having a like a unified agreement of, okay, we're going to be doing this way when using smart home stuff instead of the current way it is, where it's a bit of a free for all. Take the was it the Ring doorbells and things like that. They're trying to make it so, hey guys, we're good at bits and pieces of this. Let's work together and make it so that we're abiding to a standard. This is actually really surprising, to be honest, and it's quite admirable that they're actually doing this.
The biggest surprise is with the Apple, because obviously Apple don't really like to formalise. They haven't moved over to USB like everyone else has. Mm-hmm. So it is good to see them do this. But yeah, this is obviously just a massive benefit to the consumer, because the last thing the consumer wanted is for you to buy like a specific smart light, depending on what smart home device you use.
Yep.
It's always a positive for you to have the choice to be able to pick which smart home device you have, and then also be able to pick the products that can also be utilised with that.
Yeah, and it will go from sort of it'll go from having to pick a product because I'm already using Android or Apple in this environment with other cameras that I've got Android as well, so I might as well. You'll actually end up picking the product you like the best rather than the one that fits in to your system. Because I think I forgot to mention, but the main focus of this whole thing was to basically make it easier to have your devices compatible with other products, so you can have your Amazon this connecting to your Google camera and da. So it's a compatibility focus rather than a we want to make more money.
Like swaths of products being closed off to your device.
Yeah.
Because as you said, like I think Nest, which is the company that does the heating and stuff, that's a product owned by Google, isn't it? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so.
So it doesn't help if you had a Nest heating device, but you had an Amazon or an Apple smart device. They might not have worked. But this is obviously a move that just opens up the market and allows consumer choice. It can only ever be seen as a positive to have the consumer choice. Yeah. I don't think you have a smart device, but I have an Alexa. I use it for my lights in my house, which actually was one of the markets it wasn't too bad for. You're not really fixed in when it comes to lights. But obviously, there were products that were fixed in, and you had to buy a certain product to get it work. I do think when the Alexa first came out, it was fixed in when it came to lights. I'm pretty sure you had to buy a Philips Hue like smart light, but now you can just buy any old cheap one. And as you said, I think there were certain cameras that you had to buy and all that. And like, this is obviously just a positive. As you say, the more competition you get for these products, the cheaper they get and the better they become. And it's the sort of thing, if you buy an Amazon, you might not want to buy a Ring camera after finding out how awful they've been recently of security.
Yeah. It says, I'm just reading some details of the story. The new standard is aimed at smart home products like Amazon's Echo, Apple's HomePod, and Google's Home. It's called Project Connected Home over IP, otherwise known as, I think they were calling it Chip of some sort. Anyway.
Yes.
A very specific name for a group with a very specific goal: to develop and promote the adoption of a new royalty-free connectivity standard to increase compatibility among smart home products with security as a fundamental design what's that word?
Tenet.
What does tenant mean? Any clues?
Just like
Standard, I
just a
guess.
roll, basically.
Okay.
Just another word for roll.
Yeah, it would be nice to be able to buy like a Amazon Echo and say, you know, turn the Philips light on. But as you said, lights aren't really one of the things that was restricted here because lights are just on or off. You know, they're not anything else apart from dim and things like that. But when you get to the point where you're using, you know, cameras and sending the footage somewhere, and you're using your other audio devices and stuff, it can get quite tricky if you've got those boundaries in place.
Yeah. That's basically it. You know, this is a good news story because it allows you to choose which product you want to buy. You can mix and match. You know, it's just opened up the industry, and this could have been an industry that was very restricted. You know, you had three major companies competing in it. It could have very easily became a situation where if you buy a Apple smart device, then all the products you had to buy had to be Apple certified because Apple weren't going to make the device compatible with any of the Google certified stuff. And it's the same the other way around. You know, you buy Google Home, then you might have had to buy all these products that were Google certified. This is just sort of like kick the industry a bit up the arse, and it's sort of going to be, oh, you can now buy an Amazon Alexa and you can use some of these products that are recently Google. You can use some of these products that are Apple. You know, it's just a good way. It's a good way that the industry's turned out like this. You know, this is a very positive news story.
Yeah, they probably had a meeting behind the scenes and was like, hey guys, we can make a shit ton of money here if you want to allow people to use third-party peripherals with your devices. If you do that, people are more likely to buy it, and everyone just turns to each other and goes, yeah, we were thinking of doing that, and then why don't we just collaborate? And obviously we get stories like this, so it's good to see them working together, but I don't think it's like, oh, we want to we want to, you know, be happy, friendly with everyone. It's nothing to do with that.
Oh no, obviously not. It's they looked at it and they must have realised that whenever you have a sort of product mashup with a bunch of exclusivities, you always get the same thing, and that's one company winning and every company losing.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't want to be the company that loses. Basically, this is the easy way to make it so all of the companies are going to get a smaller part of the market share, but they're guaranteed that small part of the market share.
Yeah, as you
Whereas
said,
if you think previously, if it did become restricted, then I imagine what would happen is everyone would just jump over to the Amazon Alexa, because obviously it's the more fixed product, it's the product that everyone knows. And people would stop using Google and Apple because of the exclusivity that comes with it.
yeah, because, you know, I think Amazon is the leader in this space, I believe. But
Amazon Alexa's the one that's been out for ages, and I think the Alexa's the one that everyone knows of.
Yeah, and maybe this will change that. Maybe there'll be a level playing field now that you can actually use your Google Home and your, I don't know, does Apple have one? Apple, is it HomePod, is it?
Yeah, it's what it says. I didn't realise Apple had one until I saw this article, but obviously they do.
Doesn't that sum it up, though? I didn't realise Apple had one.
Yeah,
You know,
basically.
Amazon is definitely the, hey guys.
It'd obviously been something that Amazon would have had or been planning to have, because obviously what these home devices basically are, they're basically just a fixed home point for something like Siri. That's basically what it is. It's Siri but at home.
Yeah, but how good is Siri compared to Google Assistant and Alexa, you know? Alexa is definitely like you think of smart homes, you immediately in your head go to Amazon Alexa, and they'll have spent millions trying to make sure that's the case.
Yeah, well, they're the only ones you really see advertised on TV, isn't it?
Yep.
You see Alexa adverts on TV all the time.
The others are more like, oh, by the way, we do this too. So.
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty surprised that there's a collaboration like this going on. Maybe not collaboration, but more of a, okay, guys, should we do it this way? Because then it's good for all of us. So
yeah, as I said, I'm very surprised that Apple's taking part, because Apple have sort of been against this in other parts. Like Apple don't even use the USB still, which is crazy to me. And instead of just using the USB, as we discussed the other week, there was a high chance they might just be saying, we're just going to have no port. Instead of moving over to your dirty USB, we're just going to do wireless charging.
But watch them do this and then say, by the way, our Siri now has no microphone, so you have to just like hum things or do hand gestures to ask Siri because it's revolutionary,
Yeah. So, they can't do that crap no more, though, because they don't have Steve Jobs to pedal it.
I'm pretty sure they can, man. Because like we discussed before, they're coming out with perhaps a phone with no ports or less ports, if you can do such a thing. Touch screen with no ports or buttons. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, it's just the world we live in now, eh?
Yeah. Today there is no widely adopted open standard for smart home, which is built upon IP, and yet IP is the protocol of the internet and is the most common network layer used in our homes and offices. Many smart home devices use proprietary protocols today, requiring them to be tethered to some home. In harnessing this, so basically they're like, let's get with the times, guys, and get this done. So it's good to see. It's good to see.
Yeah.
In practice, this means that smart devices like smart lights, thermostats, and other such home electronics aren't necessarily compatible with each smart speaker until perhaps soon. Okay, I'm pretty happy to move on. I'm not sure if you wanted to add any others.
Yeah. That's we're at the perfect point for you to segue us over.
I'm trying to think of a segue. Speaking of... no. Speaking of unexpected announcements, Russian firm sues Twitch for $3 billion over illegal English Premier League soccer streams. I mean, the title says it all on this one. First of all, how much money is there in football? Probably an astronomical... Well, not probably. Definitely an astronomical amount of money. But the fact that this illegal stream through Twitch is being targeted and now a lawsuit as a result shows how serious they are to trying to protect their asset, which is pretty scary, really.
Yeah. I'm not sure how successful this is obviously going to be, this lawsuit, but if it is successful, obviously we're going to see a massive overhaul of how Twitch works, because I wouldn't say Twitch are loose with the rules now, but like whenever you see a boxing fight, you always see like 50 or 60 streams on Twitch, don't you?
You definitely do.
As fast as they get shut off, you get a new one that comes up. And I imagine it's probably the same with Premier League games. It's, as you say, there's big money in the Premier League games. These companies pay a lot of money for it, and this is just a way for them to protect their assets. I'm quite surprised about this, to be honest, because I thought, you might not have known this, but this year, 10 of the Premier League games in the UK had their rights given to Amazon Prime. And I thought we'd have seen more issue with people buying Amazon Prime and then using the VPN to watch it abroad, where they never necessarily had the rights. So it is interesting to see, obviously, Amazon own Twitch. Yeah, I'm just making a connection there. It's not necessarily true, but this is obviously it's an interesting story, because I think this is probably the first case where Twitch have been sued over an issue like this.
Yeah,
I can't remember reading a case before like this. So definitely the biggest case they've been involved in, I imagine.
Yeah, and obviously we're in a time now where anyone can open Facebook, open Twitch, open YouTube, and just start a live stream of whatever they want. And it's almost policing that has got to be one of the most difficult challenges I can imagine. It's how do we stop a single person from broadcasting this property, because it is a property, the media of a game or a live sport event, regardless if it's Premier League or not. How do we stop an individual showing other individuals on their friends or in their community the game, and how do we detect that? It's it's going to be like a game of whack-a-mole, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's good. I don't think there is a way to do it unless there's sophisticated AI brought in that can, it just looks at the screen and it knows it's an illegal stream and it shuts it down. because Twitch just don't hire enough people for them to specifically moderate every stream that gets put out. You know, it's not like there's one Twitch moderator for every one stream. Yeah, it's just there's no way for them to fix this Twitch unless they have some sort of AI that watches the streams and can just immediately cancel it. And it's one of the things where if this lawsuit wins, then Twitch is basically done for, because every country is basically going to turn around and sue Twitch for the same thing. Because, you know, you got a Spanish company that has the rights to the Premier League, you got an Indian company, you got a Chinese company. Obviously, you don't get Twitch in China, so that's not necessary. You got the US, obviously buys the rights to the Premier League. You got Germany. You know, you can have all these countries where the broadcaster turns around and has the rights to the Premier League and be like, we're also going to sue Twitch. This is an easy way to get 3 billion.
Yeah, it's like I was going to say. So with I've lost my train of thought there. Twitch 3 billion illegal streams. Oh yeah, so they might even get to they probably will get to a point where it's not so much trying to police every stream that comes on, but do it more of a like from a liability angle. So let's say you've got a community of people that can upload videos or whatever they want. Maybe tying that stream down to a user and having people have to give more information before they make an account, so they can say, so Twitch can be almost, hey, I know we own the platform, but our users have sole responsibility, so you should perhaps, you know, talk to them, kind of thing. Maybe it will go down that avenue. If it gets like unmanageable amount of people that are doing it, and Twitch are thinking, oh crap, we're going to get pummeled here by the law. Maybe we not necessarily blame the users, but give the users more accountability for doing this sort of thing. Instead of being able to make an account with a fake email address, you know, maybe you have to give your name and proof of ID and things like that to make it a bit more restrictive.
Yeah, I could imagine that. I can imagine that being a thing for the future, because obviously you get these sort of cases, and if this sets a precedent, obviously it won't set a precedent everywhere because Russia must run off a different legal system than other places, but if it does set a precedent, then you're just going to see a big turnaround with not just Twitch, but every streaming company getting sued. Because obviously YouTube has quite a lot of streams for like the boxing and the football. You know, sports are a big industry. Billions of pounds get paid to buy the rights for sports, and this is the sort of thing that could happen if you own a platform that allows people to stream.
Yeah, and you can
say,
sorry, go on.
As you said, there are ways they could file. Like as you said, they could get more information from the streamers and then hold them directly accountable. Maybe a thing they do is where, like, when Premier League games are specifically on, or big sporting events, they sort of say, oh, the only people allowed to Twitch stream now are like our partners. Every other small stream basically has to shut down. You know, that's obviously not something that Twitch would want to do, and I don't think it's very likely to happen, but it's obviously one way to combat it.
Yeah, because at the moment you can literally go to Google and type in, like, any sport event that's going on, you can type in, I don't know, Team 1 versus Team 6 live stream, and you'll get a bunch of dodgy websites that will give you your streams and stuff. But you also, Twitch is there as well. And even if you go to Twitch itself and you go to the search and you search for that event, it will come up during that time. So maybe they'll have to take more active measures in restricting those search results, more than they already do, I guess.
Yes, yeah, I imagine that's probably the future we're looking at. Because it's a whole entire industry that basically doesn't like streaming because of this. That's a massive industry. But at the same point, you know, Twitch does just turn around and say, there's not much we can do, because, as we said, there isn't much Twitch can do. You know, because the couple of solutions we've came up with aren't really practical solutions if you think about it. None of the users on Twitch are going to like it. So it depends. Obviously, you know, in about 2 months' time, we might see that this lawsuit might just not be a thing. You know, it might just be over that quickly, and it might not be an issue for Twitch. But if it is something that happens and they win, then Twitch are going to have some serious problems, because, you know, 3 billion is a lot of money as well.
That's an insane
You know,
amount of money.
yeah. I'm not sure that they will win that much, but if they do, that's even for Twitch. That's a pretty coin, pretty penny.
That's they're probably one of the biggest websites in the world, though. I mean, I know that's not saying much, but when you're owned by
one of the biggest companies in the world.
When you're owned by Amazon, can you absorb 3 billion? You probably can.
Oh, Jeff Bezos can just pay that off, mate. He can just get his checkbook out.
But still, that's
he paid 50 billion just to have a mistress to pay his wife off. I'm sure he could pay 3 billion to the Russian mobs.
Allegedly, right? Okay.
No, he got divorced to his wife. He paid 50 million. That's not 50 billion. That's not libel. She's now also the richest woman in the world, just because she was married to Jeff Bezos.
Damn.
That's probably I think it's like the 4th or 5th richest person in the world. That's obviously what happens when you marry the richest man in the world and he decides to cheat on you.
What do you say to that?
I don't really know, really, because that was a bit of an offshoot on the actual discussion we was meant to be having.
1 minute we're talking 3 billion over illegal Premier League. Next minute we're talking divorce settlements. I'm like, oh shit, what have I missed here?
Yeah. Which one's worse, Bezos? The Russians for 3 billion or your own wife for 50?
He's like, oh well, I'll just do both. That's fine. I'll just pay it off. Yeah. Forget it ever happened.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. The bloke's ridiculously wealthy and makes a ridiculous amount of money. You know, it takes him like a day to make 3 billion. It seems.
Speaking of a company that takes a day to make 3 billion, I don't think Spotify's up there, but Spotify's founding story is going to be a Netflix series. Akin to The Social Network, that was the Facebook's founding movie, what's the adaptation? Is that the one? Yeah. Basically, it looks like Quibi. Quibi? Am I saying that right? There's apparently a new streaming service coming out called Quibi. I'm going to say it wrong over and over again. And that is going to be the flagship series on how Spotify got started and the untold story and the behind the scenes of X, Y, and Z. So, I for one love my sort of geeky shows. I love the Mr. Robots and the real documentaries and things. So, hey, bring it on. More tech kind of TV shows and documentaries, the better.
Yeah, this is the sort of series we like to watch on Netflix. Yeah, I hope it'll be a good series. Hopefully it's an interesting story.
Well, the story will focus on Spotify's founding and how it changed the way people listen to music over the past decade. Let's be honest, it's going to be a multi-part Spotify advert because they're going to get involved with it, I'm sure.
I don't know that's necessarily true. Netflix are pretty good at making documentaries, and obviously this isn't a documentary, but they're pretty good at making these. I don't really know what you call it. A series that follows a true story, a true event.
Sorry, speaking of true events, this one what I just said was complete rubbish at the beginning. It's not going to be on Quibi. It's going to be on Netflix.
No, it's on Netflix. There's Snapchat.
The Snapchat one, I misread it. Sorry about that. This one will be on Netflix. Snapchat's one's on Quibi. Facebook Social Network is obviously in cinemas. So, correction. Sorry, as you were.
Oh, you really threw me off there.
I
think it's probably going to be good because obviously Netflix are known for making good series. They put a lot of effort into it. Obviously, a few of the series have been flops. Looking at you, Marco Polo. It'd be interesting to see the story of how Spotify were born, because they did revolutionise the world of music. You think before Spotify, it was all downloaded music, basically. You either went to the shops and bought a CD, you bought it from Apple iTunes, or you was a pirate. There was no other way really to do it. Then Spotify came along, then it all just became streaming. When was the last time you downloaded or bought a song? Just probably can't even remember, can you? It was that long ago.
Well, probably not the best example, because I actually bought one of my I follow an artist and I bought their CD because they didn't actually release on streaming services because they didn't want to do the music as a service platform. They wanted to go through the whole physical media thing. But apart from that, it's been at least 10 years. At least.
Yes, they have revolutionised it. The market's changed because of Spotify. And it's not just, like Spotify opened the gateways for Netflix itself as a streaming service. First music was a streaming service, then it became video. And in a few years' time, we're going to be looking at the Google Stadia maybe, and we're going to be thinking, oh yeah, gaming's now a streaming service. And it all started with Spotify music.
Yeah, because, as you said, before it was kind of, oh, the new album, have you got this? Oh, you can download it from, LimeWire, Napster, Winamix, BearShare, to name a few of these peer-to-peer kind of, let's download these individual files. All of a sudden, like the disruptors came along, like your Spotify's and your, what was the other one? There was another one as well. I'm trying to remember the other one. But basically your convenient music services that were quite cheap to say, hey, pay this small amount of money a month. You can get all the music you want. Don't even worry about downloading it. And it's pretty amazing how you speak to anyone and they've either got Apple Music or Spotify for their music now. There's no in between. You got the odd people using YouTube, sure, but still, they've definitely carved their way in and says, nah, this is how we're doing it now. So the story will be quite intriguing, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an interesting founding, I imagine.
I'm looking forward to seeing how the whole, because at one point there was quite a lot of copyright battles going on because I think they had, in some countries they actually put libraries of music on that they didn't technically own the rights to, and then they got stung for that.
Okay.
And the whole, it'd be interesting to see about how they first won a contract. I think it was Sony. And that allowed them access to I'm going to make the number up here, but 600,000 songs that they didn't previously have ownership of, and that really started to kickstart their product because people aren't going to use Spotify if their favourite artists don't come up on the search results. And I think their licensing agreements that they, that they worked on and won actually massively changed the platform because now they can actually use the artists everyone knows and loves on their platform instead of just relying on, oh, we've got a really good app.
Yeah. That's right, really, because obviously when when Spotify first started out, you used it because of the convenience of the app, not because it had every artist, because it didn't have every artist. But now you sort of just go on Spotify because it does have every artist, don't you?
Yeah.
There's no point looking anywhere else because Spotify's just got it.
Oh, there's a new album. Let's give this a listen. Bang, straight away.
Yeah, I can't think of an artist at the top of my head that isn't on Spotify. Obviously, there must be a few, but it does pretty much have everything. It kind of became the thing where it became so big. As an artist, you just got to be on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you didn't put yourself on Spotify, you weren't going to get the views. Spotify became bigger than the industry, really. In that sense, obviously it doesn't make more money in the industry because doesn't Spotify keep posting losses? Spotify really has struggled, haven't they, financially over the years?
Yeah, but I think they're going for the we want to be around in 10 years so we can take the loss now kind of approach.
Yeah, of course. A bit like Twitter and other companies in the tech industry.
Spotify.
But yes. It's cool. It's looking cool. I can't wait to watch it.
How long have you had your Spotify account for? I know it's a random tangent, but...
I'm not sure. Is there any way to find that out by going on...
But roughly, have you had it several years, yeah? Constantly paying for it?
Yeah, a few years, yeah.
I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
There can't be many other services where people just pay it for years. It's just a surefire thing, isn't it, for them? Just printing money at this point.
Yeah, obviously it must be quite expensive because I imagine there is a lot they pay out on, and obviously these services use a ridiculous amount of bandwidth cost that you don't think about. You have it all the time, don't you? Where people think, oh, if you make a website and it becomes viral, then you become like a millionaire. But really, it's like, no, you make a website and it becomes viral. You're spending a fortune on bandwidth cost, and you better hope you can get advertising on it.
Yeah,
because you look at 4chan, that cost the bloke who made it millions and millions of pounds basically in debt he got just to try to keep it running, because no actual big advertiser was willing to advertise on 4chan.
Yeah, it's and then obviously when you have a subscription service, you got your free and your premium, so your free is loaded with ads and all sorts of stuff on there. Still listenable, you can still download your tracks, but you can't do. Sorry, you can still listen to your tracks, but you can't do like offline play and until recently, and other additional features.
Yeah,
then they make you pay a subscription fee. You're locked in then. So
yeah, it wasn't too bad. Spotify free is good enough. I think you got like an advert every half an hour, didn't you?
Yeah, I think for me, I got it every like 4 tracks. It's like, hi, I'm Steve from the RAF. You should sign up and da-da-da-da. It's like, I'm just trying to listen to some bloody rap music. I don't need this. The
reason why I got Spotify Premium was actually because you have to have Spotify Premium to link it up to your Alexa. So that's how they got me.
For me, it was the downloading it on the phone. That was a big thing. Because then when you have it on your phone, you can listen to it in your car, That sort of thing. Speaking of cars, hey, there's a segue. Speaking of cars, self-driving Mercedes will be programmed to sacrifice pedestrians to save the driver. Seems like we always come back to the moral dilemmas of self-driving cars on this podcast. Do you want to take this one away, Chris? Because I think you added this one.
Yeah. This is something we discussed a few weeks back, and this is what I said I think the companies were going to do, was program it to sacrifice the pedestrians over the driver, because ultimately self-driving cars have a responsibility to the person who purchased the product. As weird as it sounds, that's obviously who their loyalty lies on.
When they crash, self-driving Mercedes will be programmed to save the driver and not the person or the people they hit. I mean, that's kind of what car manufacturers before the whole self-driving cars thing do anyway, Otherwise, if that was the case, the airbags would be on the outside of the cars,
Yeah, it's such a weird thing. To me, this always seemed like the natural progression it was going to go on to. But then self-driving cars came out, and people basically started bringing up the moral dilemma again, and I can't remember the name of it, like the train track scenario, and they was like, oh, what are they going to do? And to me, it was always like, well, they're going to save the driver because they're the person buying the product. That ultimately the company's liability is keeping the driver safe. If the driver gets injured, they're the ones who can sue the company. If a pedestrian gets injured, they can't sue the company. Like, to me, it always made sense that it'd be the driver, it'd be the one they would try to save as much as possible, because they're the one who purchased the product, so they're the one who have to rely on the product.
Yeah, but it comes down to what we've discussed over and over again. Should tech firms be making moral decisions even when it's in the interest of the drivers? Should it be the element of act of God type things, rather than when detecting a crash and pedestrians steer towards pedestrian rather than injury on the left? Seems a bit too much of a good thing, I guess. Maybe that's the wrong saying to say, but it seems a bit trying to do too much good can cause horrific bad.
Yeah, it's one of the things where I can't imagine this scenario ever coming up, to be honest. It's such a weird, as I said, it's such a weird thing to be brought up, is the whole time moral dilemma thing in the first place, because I don't think this scenario is ever likely to happen. And if it is to happen, as I said, I just think the natural progression would have always been that companies are going to try to do what's best for the person in the cars. It's who their responsibility ultimately relies to. And you're right, like, car companies shouldn't be making moral decisions to moral dilemmas. They should just be protecting the driver, because that's just what they should be doing. Like they shouldn't be playing God. And yeah, how weird of a feeling would it be for you to buy a self-driving car and then be sat in it and know that if an situation does arise, your car's basically going to be doing the maths to see if you deserve to live or die. Like, that was just crazy. And as I said last time, it held them up. There's so much liability because the moment they start quantifying these sort of things with numbers means that one day they're going to be taken to court and a lawyer's going to have to explain the numbers and basically explain to the world why they let someone die over someone else. Whereas this decision just gets rid of that.
Yeah, it's like, I know, to put it to very sort of a simple analogy, is like, does the car veer towards that oncoming train or to that family,
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. I don't think there should even be this level of choice that the car would make. I think it's like the car should detect a crash, and then airbags should deploy, and then what will happen, unfortunately as it may be, will happen. Because then, imagine going to like a coroner's case and saying, how did this person die? Oh, well, the car actually put on the handbrake and sharp turn left to avoid this and ended up going off of this road and into this bush. It shouldn't be even a factor, in my opinion. I don't think it should even.
Yeah, you're right. And the car companies never wanted this to be a factor. This was just people were really into AI technology. Yeah. The moral dilemma is like an AI question that's been asked at like computer science classes for like 50 years, basically. It's almost as old as the Turing test. Yeah. It's just something that people have seen it eventually maybe manifesting into reality. So people kept talking about it. No one else wanted to talk about it, though. Particularly the car companies themselves. Because no car company wants the liability. Like, definitely, like, Mercedes don't want to have to send a lawyer to a court, as you said, to like do a coroner case and have to stand in front of the world and be like, okay, so the driver was killed in this case because the car made a computer calculation that said that the driver was worth a value of 0.97 and the family is worth a value of 3.24. And we came to this reason because of blah, 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 blah. Like, no car wants to have the liability to have to go to court and explain this process. Because the moment they do that, the family of the person who was killed can be like, okay, so you just killed our person because of some mathematical formula, basically. It's a ridiculous thing that ever got brought up, the moral dilemma. And it purely got brought up because a bunch of people who were really excited to discuss it wanted it to be brought up.
But with the AI getting better and better, do you think that's like laws and procedures come into place to stop this, or do you think it's going to eventually get to the point of, okay, the car can do everything, what does it do in this scenario? Do you think it's going to get there?
I think a standard will come into place, but I don't think it'll be because of a law being brought out. I think, as I said, it will be because companies do not want to face the liability. Like, no company wants to go to court over something like this. So there will be a standard, but the standard will be based around avoiding getting in trouble.
Yeah, it's very. I'm trying to think. I don't even know how I feel about this. I think it's gonna be inevitable that cars will come into some sort of scrutiny because of a decision it makes based on its build, whether or not that's by intent or not. But I definitely think that there will be, based on probability, there will be some accident that happens with a car that's designed to avoid accidents that will end up causing another accident, and whose fault was it? We're going to be talking about this, not necessarily me and you, but we as as people, will be talking about this for probably decades, to be honest. That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah, no, you're correct. It is the sort of thing that's going to constantly be on the shelf. And it will be purely because people are so bloody interested in the moral dilemma.
I think it's a good controversial thing that people should be talking about, because laws are made by the people, right? Of what the people believe is fair or not, and things like that. Maybe this is just another one of those things that has to be not necessarily agreed upon, but accepted as the way it is. Maybe they have to come up with this is the way it's going to be when cars crash, da 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 da. This is where it's going to decide X, Y, and Z, maybe.
It is interesting. As we discussed, I think, a few weeks ago. Actually, I don't know if we did discuss it. I think I keep bringing this up, but this might have been in the Unheard podcast. But at one point we did discuss, I definitely Taylor brought it up, about how different communities around the world, different countries, all value different things during like moral dilemma experiments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Western countries usually put age as a heavy factor, same as the other countries actually. Most countries have age as a factor, but we usually put like babies and children above adults. Whereas in like Middle Eastern country, because they have this sort of reverence for elders, they always put age, like older, above children as what they thought was more sacred. So you get these sort of situations, you know, where it'll be different everywhere and all that if they were to follow a moral dilemma thing. As I said, it is interesting. It's just something I can't ever see happening because as you said, it just doesn't feel right to have an AI make these sort of decisions.
But maybe it's not a question of, oh, does it feel right or not? Maybe it's, you know, that's the way. Eventually, that's the way it's going to be. So how do we govern this? You know, like we mentioned earlier, like an Amazon, Google, and standard to come across. Maybe there's going to be a standard of automated cars, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, I count that about an hour. I felt like we should make the podcast a little bit shorter this time because of less people, and you know, to give us some time to have a bit of a break, because I know it's a Sunday morning for you, Chris, and a Sunday evening for me, and it's getting around that time of year where you want to not necessarily be having to record things, where you can be chilling out before or after work. So thanks for listening to Caught in the Web episode 6. Any final closing words you got, Chris?
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everyone. I'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.